Hey guys.
Hello everybody.
I'm Tricia.
And I'm Julie.
And this is the And She Laughs podcast.
We are talking about a scripture in Luke today.
And let's say where it came from. So we got a lot of feedback after our episode on praying for our enemies, or praying for those in our life that we just kind of wish would disappear or go away.
We also had feedback about conflict. When we talked about conflict resolution and doing conflict well, there was a lot of people that talked to us about having arguments with others in their heads.
So this is something obviously that the Lord has been doing in both of our lives in different ways, because we handle things differently for years and years and years, probably since we started fighting when we were little. Actually, our mom did the hug T-shirt.
She'd make us wrap our arms. That was before you could. We weren't rich. We were poor. We didn't have a big T-shirt she could put us in.
No, it was Dad's medium white T-shirt.
She just made us wrap our arms around each other, and if we dared let go, she'd make us pick a switch.
And I loved it. Julie hated it.
Despised it.
I loved it.
Yes.
So there's just one of the ways that that we handle conflict differently from the very beginning.
Yes.
But we got a lot of comments. So first of all, I love that you guys think that we have figured it out. So point one of clarification is that we are still figuring it out because even in our marriages, I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. I've had a kid since then. My gracious. And so I'm constantly changing, and I have to give grace that my husband is also constantly changing. We're humans. And that means that sometimes we have to refigure each other out. My kid is about to turn 4. He's changing a lot. And
he's a little chatterbox now, which is the best thing ever.
It's so fun.
It really is.
He cannot do the W or the L sound. He does W's instead, and I love it.
It's really the best.
It's the best. But he's changing, so I'm changing. I try to change with him and not just be like, it's what I say and do all the time. And but we got a lot of comments on one of the funniest things that I think got so many comments was that I mentioned in my praying about conflict, I mentioned that I have fake fights with people in the shower. And was really interesting how many of all of us have fights with people in our showers.
Or fake fights just
in general. Riding down the road, especially if you know that you're going to see this person. So when you have a conflict or a tension with somebody at work and you're on your way to work and you're getting ready. You're like, okay, when I see them, this is how it's going to happen. This is how it's going to go down. And I'm not letting them step on me anymore. No, sir. I am not. I'm going to stand my ground.
That's right.
And then you have people that you can call that I would consider hype people. And these are your people who, it used to be mom. Now my mom does not really support me in conflict as much anymore. I don't know why, but she's like always the antagonist or something, but she used to be my ultimate hype person. Like I would call Danny about a situation and he would say, do not call your mom. And I was like, I called her before I called you, boo, because I knew you was going to tell me not to call her. But we have people in our lives that I would call our egger honors, who are like, oh yeah, you should say that. You should say, and a lot of times these are, of course, people that we're very close to. I could definitely confess to being Julie's egger honor, especially since I'm more confrontational, and I perceive that Julie is allowing people to walk on her sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, you can just send me their number. You don't have to come up with something to say. I'll say it. But it was interesting how many of us, I'm going to put a different spin on it. It's interesting how many of us spend a lot of time preparing for battle, preparing for war, preparing for, and it's self-preservation, because we want to defend ourselves. It's also pride, because we do want our point to be edified and to come across well, and to, and but so many of us were like, ooh, that stung really bad. And it stings because oftentimes when we are doing the fake conversations, the fake fights, and if she says this, and I'm going to say this, and if he says this, oh, I'm ready for that. Oh, I'm so ready for that. I've got a perspective for him. And it's so funny how often we have spent so much time and energy focusing on tension and conflict, and we haven't spent time in prayer or even asking the Holy Spirit, what is my role here? What do you want my thought process to be? What do you want my words to be? Do you want me to be quiet? Do you want me? Is this something I'm supposed to stand up strong for? And so Julie and I were talking about some of the reflections that we got from you guys, and it led her down this really cool passage of scripture where Jesus is giving some pretty strong instruction that I think is going to our prayer for each week, for every single week, is that the Holy Spirit would, through this podcast, encourage us where we are doing well, but convict and challenge us where we could do better and where we could grow and be closer to Him. And I really feel strongly that today's scripture that we're kind of honing in on is going to equally, not equally, it's probably going to more challenge and convict, for sure. But hopefully it's also going to encourage us. So.
Yeah, well, I was listening to a podcast from Francis Chan, and he was talking about something completely different, and he often sidebars, and one of his sidebars was about this scripture. And he was talking about being led by the Holy Spirit, and he said, and the Holy Spirit, Jesus even tells us not to prepare conversations in our head beforehand. And I was like, I'm sorry, what was that? Rewind? That's reverse. That's scriptural. I would also like to say that in us doing this podcast, I ask the Lord to change me in whatever way, whatever avenue we're going down. And I have probably had more conflict in my life after talking about conflict than I had before, because the Lord is weeding it out.
Yeah.
When I ask the Lord to kill something in me, dang. Yeah. I had a phone call with one of my mentors the other day, and I was like, I was sobbing. I said, I think I'm going to stop asking him to kill this in me, because it is killing me. It is killing me. I have had so much conflict in the last week, and scientifically, it is not healthy for a person to argue in their head.
Right.
I have sources. Okay. It's not healthy. The science behind it is arguments take a lot of brain energy. They undermine brain performance and can lead to a complete shutdown of the brain's cognitive circuits and hand over all decision-making and action to the emotional circuits in the brain.
Yeah.
Another source says, it puts your brain into a stressful, negative space, releasing cortisol, the stress hormone, which when experienced too often is bad for your mental and physical health. These angry convos in your head ultimately have the same feel and effect as complaining. Okay, last one. Having imagined fights in one's head very often leads to negative thought loops that individuals become entrenched. Once these patterns happen, just a few times, the brain will automatically veer into those entrenchments. Yes. The pulls of negativity on the human brain take only little influence, a few times, and we are stuck. Where positivity must be practiced consistently over time to win the fight of stress in your mind.
Yeah. So I want to give you guys a visual for what she just said. So my husband and I recently went to Disney. We had friends who like, praise God for us, but they work at Disney, and they reached out to us in December and offered us 4 free days in the park hoppers. And it was just a really incredible God blessing for us, since I am expecting, and we were able to do this like last only child trip for Jude. My favorite park is Animal Kingdom. I love animals. I love being outside. My favorite ride is Pandora. It's Avatar. I think of heaven. I actually will cry at the end of Pandora because I'm like smelling the smell. I'm tearing up right now, but that's because I'm pregnant and cry about everything. But it's beautiful, and I couldn't ride it because I'm pregnant, but I will ride it again one day. But
Animal Kingdom is not my favorite.
I love Animal Kingdom.
Epcot's my favorite.
I do love Epcot. Yeah. But
onward, yes.
We are on like the safari. And so we're going through this safari, and you can see where the animals in their encampments have paths that they follow, because when they are in captivity, they rewire their brain, and they go on these same little trails. When they're in the wild, they have places that they like, but they migrate way more. Animals that are in the wild migrate because they're looking for food sources, they're looking for spatial protections, all these things. But when they're in captivity, you can see the paths, the exact paths that they walk on the outside of the. So I was watching this. It was actually a cheetah. And I was looking at how plush all of the green grass was around this, and it's beautiful. They've done a beautiful job of captivity, but there are these exact paths around this specific, spot where you can see and that's what our brain does. It creates these paths, these auto trenches of thought process. And it actually releases like so much cortisol when we are, and this isn't just for negative thinking and negative processing and having these fake arguments with people. This is a training of the brain in general, where when you allow stress and worry to be the forefront of your thought process, you're actually training your brain to be negative first. And so you get caught in these walking patterns of, okay, I hate to say it like this, but I am the victim. People are against me, and I have to defend myself. I have to stand up I have to prove my point. I have to prove that I am intelligent. I have to prove that I have a good point. They are making me feel like I'm crazy. I have to prove that I'm not crazy. And when we get in this, we don't realize it, but we are just like that cheetah in captivity, and we are walking around this same thought process, these same little trenches that we've actually created in our brain. And that's a analogy or a picture for us, but there are actual trenches in the brain. There are you change the way that your brain works when we focus on negativity. And the number one way that we do that is with resentment and unforgiveness. And one of the first telltale signs that we are doing this is trying to control our conversations that we're having with people that we're in conflict or tension with.
Well, and these fake arguments in your head, they have no resolution.
You ain't been in my arguments. I can resolve the thing.
What happens is it's not real actual resolution.
Correct.
So what happens is when you're standing person to person and you're having an argument, your cortisol will stop in resolution. Like the cortisol dump stops in resolution for person to person conflict. When you are having these, in your brain, round and round and round in your brain, there is no resolution. So even when you stop yourself and you're like, oh, I got to get out the door. Oh my gosh, I got to load up the car. Your body still continues to dump that stress hormone into your body, and it negatively affects your outlook on things for the day.
Yeah.
So we're hopping in. It's Luke 21, 14. And it says, but make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourselves. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you,
what version is that?
This is NIV.
Okay,
let me hear yours.
Well, I have a New King James that my dad got me, and it says, "Therefore, settle it in your heart, not to meditate beforehand on what you will answer." Mm. I mean, they're the same things. It's just hearing it in those different ways, is multi-challenging.
Yeah, I've read Luke a lot. I never saw this before. I didn't. And I love how when you're asking the Lord to crucify you daily, like you are trying to kill things inside of you that are not of the Lord. And he's like, oh, okay, read this, and it's like, right. Ha!
And please Jesus is talking to the disciples about end times that are coming. And he's talking about severe trials that are coming. He literally, if you back up, it's like, mm-hmm. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes in various places, famines, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. But all these things they will lay their hands on. But before all these things, they will lay hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons. Yeah. You will be brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And so Jesus is actually talking about severe persecution.
Yes.
Like you think about a court case where you've got to prepare a case for a really long time. That's the synagogues. That was their judicial system.
Right.
You were brought into the synagogues. That's how Jesus died. This is not just saying from person to person. Jesus is challenging them on this crazy level of do not prepare to defend yourself
in court.
See, when your life is on the line.
We think of synagogue or
as the holy place,
as church, as the church.
Correct.
This was the judicial system.
Right.
He's saying, don't build a case for yourself.
Don't build a case for yourself.
Yeah. And that's really
Let's just all take a second to repent for a second.
Because we build cases for ourselves over stupid stuff.
Yeah.
We spend hours.
Yeah. Building
cases for ourselves in our brain.
Yeah.
And something that was interesting to me, I'm going to say interesting, is that the Pharisees did this. There are several times in Scripture where it points out in John 25, it says, they discussed it among themselves. They discussed how they were going to argue with Jesus.
Luke 20.
Oh, yeah, I'm in Luke. Sorry. They discussed it amongst themselves how they were going to argue with Jesus. Mm. And then also in John 11.
So the breakdown of that would be that when we are having these self-discussions about people we're in tension with, we're acting more like a Pharisee than we're acting like Jesus. Is that what you're trying to say, Julie?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I didn't like it.
You have that in your head. But this is, it's gut wrenching.
It is.
That the evil, the bad guys, are the church leaders. They're it just is gut wrenching.
Yeah.
And Jesus is not telling his disciples, argue with the world. No. He went to the cross without a word.
Right.
He did not argue with non-believers. The people that he pointedly said, do not do this, was the Pharisees. He says, do not be swayed by the leaven of the Pharisees. Do not be changed by the Pharisees. Do not watch the Pharisees and do what they do. And it hurts me.
Yeah.
I feel like social media is just another form of arguing in your head. You could be a keyboard warrior, put it out there, just say whatever you want to say. And it's just blanket statements. Whether you have relationships with these people or not, you just put your opinions out there.
Right.
And it is because you form these thoughts in your head first and you're like, I'm going to put this on social media. Don't tell me you don't. Like, you've thought about this and you've argued this point in your head, and then you put it on social media.
Or, because I'll be like, the boat that I fall into is when I see keyboard warriors, I'm like, oh, she's so dramatic, which is still an extreme form of judgment. Mm-hmm. It's because it's also a place of pride. I would never say that on social media, but here I am spending my thoughts, my time, my energy reading.
Yeah, it's really good.
What somebody, where we are from, there are all of these what's happening in accounts.
Y'all know. Oh, y'all stalk those accounts. Don't play like gosh. You don't. I stalk those accounts sometimes.
Awful.
Or those neighborhood Facebook pages.
They are awful.
Where Karen is like, I don't know who parked their boat in their backyard, but let me oh my gosh.
And here's the picture of it, and here's their mailbox, and here's what their son wore to school. Like, it is absolutely insane. It's supposed to be like this community thing. Like, I have a friend who recently was like, hey, where could I find like art classes for my kid? That's what it's supposed to be for.
Right.
But man, it is crazy. And something had come out about one of the high school principals in our area, and there was legit 400-500 comments. And I had actually clicked on it because the principal had gotten in trouble, and I was actually trying to figure out what happened at this school. But I'm deep in these comments before I'm like, whoa. And I'll tell you that when was the last time I studied my word like this? When was the last time I picked up my Bible and a commentary? Let's talk about comments on something. When was the last time I picked up a commentary and I took this loophole down about the book of Luke as opposed to
what's happening?
High school principal
in Spanish Fort.
What?
Y'all, it's so real.
But we have to have these bottom line convictions when it comes to what we're involving our thought process in.
Yes.
And so I don't consider that, like, some people would be like, well, that's kind of legalistic. It's not. When was the last time that you got in your word that deeply? And
wow. Can I argue that for a second?
Sure.
Like, a lot of people like to slap legalism on holiness.
It's
not
again.
Legalism.
No.
I'm not saying you. We are just being lazy. And the enemy presents that to us.
You would never say, Tricia going on a date with her husband to maintain her relationship and love him is a legalistic view of how you should be married.
Say it again.
You would never say that because it's special and it's intimate. And there is a special, intimate side of your relationship with the Lord that does not get explored because we're lazy.
Or you wouldn't say to me, oh, wow, Julie, you fed your kids 3 times today? Man, that's really legalistic on the side of parenting. Oh my gosh. But we do look at our relationship with Jesus like that. And it's because the enemy has woven these little foxes into our brain that spoil the vine, that this is legalism. It's not. When you want to dive deep into your relationship with the Lord, you do more. Have you seen that viral video of the woman that was like, what if we looked at our Bibles as often as we looked at our phones? And she's literally loading the dishwasher like this with her Bible in her hand. And she's sitting on the toilet like this with her Bible in her hand. And at night, she's got like a flashlight and she's like looking at her Bible at night. And I was so convicted by that video. But here, even in Luke 11:53, it says, when Jesus went outside, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law began to oppose him fiercely and besiege him with questions, waiting to catch him in something that he might say. They were always
setting traps
for him.
Yeah.
And listen, I think it's really imperative for us as Christians to recognize the difference of what Jesus would say to non-believers and what Jesus would say
for sure
to those who represented his Father.
Yes.
And they were very different.
Yes.
Very different things.
Well, there was a pretty controversial thing, and this might be one of the most controversial things I've said on the podcast as far as sparking conversation goes. But
I'm excited.
But the Super Bowl had these ads about Jesus washing the feet of all of these people,
right.
and it was there was beauty in it. There was misrepresentation in it, and it did spark a lot of kind of wildfire because everybody's like, but Jesus washes the feet of sinners, which is true. But the sinners that he washed the feet of were his disciples. Mm-hmm. He washed the feet. He didn't wash the feet of the Samaritan woman. He ministered to her and he gave her truth, and he told her that she had to change her life. Mm-hmm. He told her that there were standards that she had to listen. He revealed himself as Messiah to her. And she said, this is worth changing my life for. But he didn't wash the feet of the Pharisees, and that he washed the feet of his disciples, those that were closely following him. And I think that
he washed the feet of Judas, who he knew was going to betray him.
So he absolutely washes the feet of sinners. Yep. In relationship and in a fellowship of him. Yes. And I think that sometimes we would rather do this act of washing the feet of people as opposed to doing the work of rightness with the Lord.
Ooh.
And that is not a true representation of the gospel.
No, and that's so really good.
It's like I would rather just buy a meal for somebody on the street corner than go to work and make peace with this person who I can't stand.
Or even park my car and take that meal to a person and say, hey, I see you're holding a sign that says, hungry. I got you this meal. Can I also minister to you for a second?
Yeah.
Because, I'm about to say something controversial. Shocking. Because
I say controversial because a lot of the Super Bowl ads created a lot of discussion among Christians.
They did. I agree.
So to put a strong opinion on that, I still love you if you disagree with me. I just would love for you to combat me with a biblical example.
Yeah, it's really well. And my point, my ADHD is off the chain because I'm like, what was my point? What was my point?
I'm there.
But I'm just saying, like, we would rather, nope, it's gone.
Okay. We had a speaker come to our church, Cheryl Luke, and she did this most brilliant thing. Okay. If you're not watching this, if you're just listening, then imagine she puts her finger like behind her head. She in the middle of a sentence. I mean, she's preaching in front of 1,200 people, and in the middle of her sentence, she loses it. I never felt more seen in my whole life. But
we promised this was going to be like real conversations with us. This is real.
Her finger behind her head, and she starts circling her head, and she's like, it's coming back. It's coming back. It's coming back.
It was so good.
There it is. And she keeps going. And I can't tell you how many times I've put my finger behind my head and gone, come on, Trish.
Where's it at?
Where's it at? It's coming back. It's coming back. It's completely dissipated.
It's gone.
It's gone. That is not a pregnancy thing for me. That is what I have to offer the world.
It's so real. Oh, and do you know what? In about 10 minutes after we get done with this recording, and I'm in my car, and I'm like, dang it, that was such a good point. I better write it down and give it to everybody later. Y'all, we were starting to record, and I was thinking, like, I was struggling with my heart today. I hashed out some conflict I've been having the last couple of days with some of my family members. They're so cute. And I'm like, so Tricia, why don't you lead us out in prayer? And she begins to pray for all of you, sweet darlings. And she doesn't even be like, and Lord, Julie's conflict that she's got. And I'm like, pray for me, Tricia, pray for me.
I did. Sorry about that, buddy. Oh, but that's because one time before we did a podcast, and I had been having a bad day, and she was like, Tricia, let me pray for you. The challenger in me, I went,
I hate when people do that.
I don't want you to do that.
Real life convos with Julie and Tricia. This is real.
You can pray for me to the Lord. But if I'm mad and you're like, let me pray for you, I'm like, don't Jesus juke me. That's wrong and that's prideful. Okay?
I wasn't going to say it.
That's wrong and that's prideful.
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't.
But I also am the kind of person like in stress, like not just in anger, but like in hardship and sadness. I need to process with the Lord. And so I had kind of prematurely vented, which is what we do when we are looking to be egged on in our perception of an argument, of the way that our husbands get our children dressed in the morning. Hypothetical.
Oddly specific.
So sometimes that like, and that was a few weeks ago. But I actually had been so frustrated and annoyed at the way that our morning had gone. And so by the time Julie got to the house, I had chewed Daniel Thayer out in the most profound and beautiful, like
eloquent,
red ink worthy kind of way, where my intelligence was on display. My parenting style was obviously superior, where he was openly apologetic. I don't know if you can tell how strongly I'm dreaming right now. But I had gone through how I was going to present my view of how that morning had gone. And so it wasn't even a conversation. It was that I was going to have this beautiful, this is what happened and this is how you were wronged. And
that's all happening in your head.
It's all happening in my head.
Yeah.
And so, of course, by the time I had the conversation with Danny, who didn't know we were in conflict, which is an interesting way to go. 'Cause we definitely were after I mentioned it. And it was not a one-time eloquent speech. Okay. But I had created a situation that I did have to repent for. And if I had just not done the vent, not sought out, like, my girl, if I had gone to the Lord and allowed him to calm my emotions, my anger, my frustration, if I had allowed him to speak to me on my husband's behalf, even on my son's behalf, on my behalf, and allowed there to be more grace than pride, there never would have been a conflict. There never would have been a fake fight in my head. There never,
Well, and that's just putting a bow on all of this. Like, the most important part of this is training yourself to take every thought captive.
Yes.
Like, you now recognize, okay, God, I have a rabbit hole that I jump down. I have this entrenchment in my brain. Could you kill that in me? And I know that sounds like really drastic words, but it is a part of you that needs crucified.
And if you think about trenches, if you think about as far as the picture of the animals in captivity, this is not like this one-time prayer where grass and flowers are suddenly going to spring forth in this entrenchment. It has been patted down. It has been carved out. And so creating life there takes work.
Yeah.
And it takes nurturing, and so Jeannie Allen has a book called Get Out of Your Head. Get Out of My Head. It's one of those. But
I think it's Get Out of Your Head.
She talks about this downward spiral that we go through. And we actually did a 6-week women's Bible study last year with our women here at City Hope Church, and taught about, okay, here's how we figure out that we're on this downward spiral, and here is what the word says about spiraling up.
Right. And I don't think
every thought captive.
If you're listening to this, you're like, oh no, I don't need a book to know that I spiral in this area.
No,
it's true. It's just a matter of how many times a day I do it.
Yes.
And
it's a teaching. I have to retrain my thoughts on how to take that captive, because we can be 5 minutes into the argument before it's like, I'm not praying about this. I'm not fruitful. Before we even hear the Holy Spirit go, hey, talk to me.
Mm-hmm. And something our marriage counselor told Ben and I have to go back and listen to all of our episodes to make sure I'm not resharing things that I've already shared. But our Ben was asking.
I just don't care. I'm like, remember when I went to Disney?
Repeat. So Ben and I were in marriage counseling, and he told our marriage counselor, he was like, I just need you to help me rip out the old wiring and rewire my brain. And our counselor said, well, that's not the way it works. Any wiring that's run in your brain is there forever. You have to run new wiring and then stand at the crossroads and choose to use the new wiring, and don't divert into the old. And
ew.
Oh, for sure. And then I had a friend that was texting me yesterday, and she was talking about some trauma that she experienced earlier in her life. And I asked her, I said, did you go to trauma counseling for this? And she said, I did. And she goes, but I recognize it's something I need to revisit at this point. Because guys, we walk with limps, and we're going to walk with these limps this side of heaven.
Yeah.
We don't get to just erase them from our lives. Paul talked about the thorn in his flesh that he would always walk with. Jacob walked with a limp for the rest of his life.
Yep.
We walk with limps for the rest of our lives, things that happen to us, and we can either spiral into them or we can minister from them.
Well, we can either make the limp our identity, or we can make it the part of our story that makes the rest of our life beautiful.
Right.
And we have a choice. We have a choice that we can be an overcomer by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, or we can just be a walking, pre-healed, version of ourselves when God had fullness for us the whole time.
Yeah. I think it's good.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, we love you guys.
We love you guys. And we're so thankful for you. I don't think that we could ever say enough how thankful we are for the way that you listen, for the way that we get to do life with you. What an honor. I think that's something we prayed for a long time. And the way that when you send us messages and let us pray with you and let us just do life with you. We had somebody last week that was like, how do you do this, and this? And we said some really personal things in our replies.
Yeah. We talked about a lot of personal things.
Yeah. But we feel like God has gifted us in being candid and sharing our life and being able to be vulnerable. And the fact that you guys are with us in that is
really cool.
It's really humbling, and we're just really thankful for you.
And I don't think, and I know that the Lord does this, but I don't think Tricia and I ever had any idea of how many people would connect and then let us advise and pastor through this. We're like, we're going to show up at 7:30 on Thursdays. We're going to record these, and
our husbands are going to listen,
and we'll just see.
Which I don't think
we'll see how it goes.
It's fine because I say things.
Oh, anyway, we love you guys
so much.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Mwah.